Good morning. This is John Richardson speaking with you from Toronto, Canada. Today is Wednesday, July the 30th, 2025. It's 11 a.m. in the morning, Toronto time. And I guess I would begin with my usual. Can you hear me? I see Parviz is here. Can you hear me? Okay, how about anybody? Can anybody hear me here? No problem. Okay, excellent. All right. Well, let's get started here. So what this space is about, okay, for those of you who've been to previous spaces that I have organized, they're all in the service generally and aspects of ending the terrible problem that Americans abroad live under, the double taxation problem, which really is the result of U.S. citizenship taxation. And I actually want to thank Parviz for alerting me, was it a day or two ago, to a very, very interesting bill put forward by Colorado Congressman Jeff Hurd, which basically, leaving aside the exact language, is for the purpose of exempting. It's extremely brazen. I mean, the language of the bill actually proposes the exemption of one U.S. citizen, specifically Pope Leo, the newly elected Pope of the Catholic Church, from the U.S. citizenship tax regime. And this is, I think, worth a discussion. It's extremely interesting to me that a sitting congressman would propose this. In general, but I think very specifically in the context of we already have, for example, Representative Hurd's bill that was introduced in December, which, although it doesn't go as far as Congressman Hurd's proposal, which is a complete exemption, is in the spirit of trying to assist Americans abroad by essentially exempting their non-U.S. source income from taxation. But this Congressman Hurd proposal goes much, much further than that in relation to Pope Leo. What it actually does, the text of the proposed statute, is to exempt Pope Leo from Subtitle A of the Internal Revenue Code, which is the income tax provision. So this is in my view, really quite extraordinary because it appears that Congressman Hurd fully recognized the problems of, citizenship taxation, but chooses to propose ending it for one individual, keeping the rest of the 5 to 9 million Americans abroad caught in this problem. And one wonders why Congressman Hurd doesn't simply get behind the Hood bill and say, now that we see Pope Leo has been caught up in this, what it does is it's caused me to think about this. And boy, I just realized that, the imposition of the U.S. tax code on people who don't live in the United States and in relation to income that's not sourced in the United States, there's something really wrong with that. And that should end. I was so struck by this that I did a little bit of background reading on Congressman Hurd, and apparently he's married to a woman who grew up in what at the time was Czechoslovakia. But more to the point, they have 5 children who appear to me to quietly have a claim to dual citizenship. Or in addition to be, I think, alerted to and sympathetic to these problems in general, one would think that it would be Congressman Hurd or somebody like him. But yet, we have this peculiar proposal to exempt one U.S. citizen from this, leaving the problems, the injustice, and the insanity for everybody else to continue. So those are my sort of intro comments. And I'm very interested to hear anybody and everybody's thoughts on this. I welcome, glad to see you here, Parviz, particularly since, we owe this space is really to you alerting me to this. So, Parviz, let me start with you. What are your thoughts on this? Or do you have to be invited to speak or something? Hang on. Could you ask to speak? Okay, requested. Okay, excellent. Let me just invite anybody and everybody to speak. Let's start with Parviz. What are your thoughts
Hey,
on
John, great
this?
space. I'm going to have to be listening for the majority of at least the first half of the space. But my first thoughts are to your question. The reason Congressman Hurd doesn't get or may not be getting behind the LaHood bill is because that's the LaHood bill. And this can be the Hurd bill, right? And this is, by drawing attention, by proposing an exemption for one single U.S. citizen in a bill that has I would think a pretty low chance of passing. It's a signal. It's a little bit. It could be a little bit of a grandstand. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. This is something that he can do. He can say, "Oh, I propose this." Whereas the LaHood bill, obviously, it's already proposed by LaHood, and it already has a lot of backing behind it, through expat groups and whatnot. So that's my first thought. I did like what you wrote the other day. I think it was yesterday, which is that I'm sorry, you wrote it on your article on your website that the Hurd bill should be interpreted in the spirit of addressing this problem for all Americans abroad. I think that's the most productive way of going about it. And look, if you get Rep Hurd on the IRS Medic podcast or your podcast or one of these others, one or two things going to happen, right? Either he's going to uh, acknowledge that this is a problem, not just for the Pope, but for others abroad, right? Or at least if he doesn't know that it's a problem, he's going to be alerted to the fact, and obviously it would generate more awareness around the issue. I don't think there can be bad PR at all related to this bill from the perspective of helping Americans abroad. The more attention brought to this, the better. If it has to come through a proposed exemption for a single person, so be it, right? The idea is to bring attention to the issue and get more people to understand how big of an issue this is.
Yeah, I think that's right. And there was such a short paragraph. You're referring to, I guess it would be what, part D of my blog post on this. I mean, here's what I wrote. The introduction of H.R. 4501 is a clear recognition that citizenship-based taxation presents unnecessary problems and burdens for Americans abroad. Although Congressman Hurd does not suggest that Americans abroad are renouncing their citizenship because of the U.S. extraterritorial tax regime, the quest to save the Pope is a clear recognition of the problems caused by the existing regime. Given that H.R. 4501 appears to provide benefit based solely on affiliation with a specific religion, I suspect that it's dead on arrival. That said, it can and should be used to raise the question of why any U.S. citizen living outside the United States should be subject to the U.S. worldwide extraterritorial tax regime. Specifically, H.R. 4501 is support for both President Trump's pledge to end the double taxation of Americans abroad and the LaHood bill, which was introduced in December of 2018. I suggested that it be interpreted in this spirit. Okay, so that's what I wrote there. You presumably would agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And then another thing I would add is there might be an opportunity for education here, right? From the mainstream media articles describing the bill, it was kind of described as having two purposes, right? One is to protect the Pope's U.S. citizenship from being involuntarily stripped, and the second was related to tax reporting and obligations. And as we know already, John, the first proposed purpose of the bill is pretty much a non-issue, right? So I don't know if that's included in there because maybe the congressman and his drafters don't know so much about Afroim Virusk, or perhaps that's more of an attention getter, even if they know it's totally unnecessary. But in any case, if you're able to open a dialogue with Rep. Hurd or anybody from his office, I'd love to, and I think a lot of people would love to hear, what exactly their goals are with the bill and kind of what their motivations are behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is that this really it's an opportunity because it moves this into the public domain in a way that a lot of other things wouldn't, and that's how I think it should be viewed. I think it's like, I find it bizarre, particularly the first point you raise about, the sort of involuntary stripping of citizenship or something, when we know that that's not happening because of the Euphorium case. But I had another thought on that, and I wonder if what he's really suggesting is that, and this could be of real value, is that people are essentially being forced to renounce U.S. citizenship because of the tax issues. Do you think that's a possible way to interpret what he's saying?
I had not thought about that, John. That's possible. I think that would kind of presume a fairly high level understanding of the issue. I'm inclined to think by default that high of a level of understanding of the issue is not in place. So yeah, that's certainly possible. I had not thought about that, but somebody had to force me. I guess that's probably not what their interpretation was.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is sort of a segue. It's a way to open the discussion on, linking those two issues, right? I mean, no matter how you look at it, by talking about the involuntary loss of citizenship and U.S. citizenship taxation in the same paragraph, it seems to me that you're opening that as a topic for discussion, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely, especially if you have somebody like you there to link the two.
Well, I don't think it has to be me. I think it can be almost any U.S. citizen abroad who's trying to comply with the U.S. tax system. Some of this stuff is so basic. But, on another level, I look at this and I'm particularly influenced by the fact that this guy's got 5 children who may very well be dual citizens or are in position to, have dual citizenship recognized, right? And, people with dual citizenship, I think, are percentually more likely, at some point in their lives to live outside the United States, right? And, so his kids live outside the United States, they're subjected to this horrible mess. You would think that in itself would provide an incentive for this guy to, take this issue seriously in a broader sense, right?
Yeah, I think anybody who's a dual citizen, has children that are dual citizens, are going to be more more amenable, I think, to hearing and understanding these issues. And on the point of Czech citizenship, Czechia passed an expansion of their citizenship by descent laws in either 2021 or 2022. I don't remember exactly, but I co-authored an short article about it when that law came into effect with a then Slovak law student who's now a Czech lawyer, Samuel Durovček. And the upshot is, obviously everybody's case has to be, identified and screened individually. But if Rep. Hurd's wife is from Czechia, there's a strong chance that his children would qualify for Czech citizenship by verification, right? Which is not necessarily a naturalization. So anyway, getting back to the main point, yeah, absolutely. Anybody who has a dual citizen child and who loves their children, which is, I think, most people, it's safe to say, is looking down the road, or at least a fertile audience for getting them to look down the road and think about how these issues could really negatively impact their kids.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Justice Gorsuch in the Bittner decision, the Bittner F-bar decision, as you may or may not know, Justice Gorsuch has a British wife. And he was the only judge who actually even mentioned, the problems of Americans abroad, or the existence rather of Americans abroad. And so I think that to some extent, this just comes down, to people's circumstances. But could I ask you to send over to me your article you co-authored? I'd like to actually link to it, if I may, in my blog post about this, because I think that this is an important issue. Does anybody? Well, I mean, what are some other people's thoughts on this? I mean, this is just it's so weird, right? I mean, imagine a bill. Well, we have it, right? Proposing to exempt one individual from the tax system. I mean, it's almost as though, it's almost as though, the purpose of law is to be generally punitive, and, we let some people out of it if we like them or something, right?
By the way, John, before we get off this subtopic, who else's three kids are born to a Czech mother? Of course,
I do.
Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yes, sir. Donald J. Trump. His first three kids were born to Ivana Trump, who was a Czechoslovak. I don't know her exact immigration history, but it's certainly possible that three of Donald Trump's children are Czech citizens by operation of law, even if they haven't filed anything, even if they don't know it. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Donald J. Trump is moved by that in any way, but I think it's relevant to the discussion.
Well, I think it's extremely relevant to the discussion, and I suspect that there's a very, very large number of people out there who may very well be dual citizens. Well, we know there are, right, who are dual citizens by operation of law. I mean, that's how the whole citizenship by descent industry is working, right? So, I mean, this is significant, and this seems to me, I mean, to move us just a step further here, is a reason to, I think, really rethink the whole issue of what citizenship means generally, in U.S. citizenship specifically. In a modern and world where multiple citizenships are so commonplace, right? But on the law specifically, so I think we agree that there's all kinds of reasons why Congressman Hurd, I think, perhaps could be persuaded to take the position that citizenship taxation should end for everybody. What do you think of the bill itself? I mean, do you think that this has a ghost of a chance of passing?
I don't think the text of the bill has been released yet, right, John?
It has. It has. Yeah, I think this morning I received a note on that. It's actually in the blog post. I mean, it's so sparse I can read it to you. Oh, in fact, why don't I do that? It is. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. It's so brazen. Okay, I mean, usually they write this stuff so it's complex and you can't understand what it is. But here's this: Mr. Hurd of Colorado for himself, Mr. Kelly of Pennsylvania, blah, blah, blah. But here we go. Unbelievable. A bill to protect the citizenship of and provide tax-exempt status to any American elected as the Supreme Pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church. Being enacted, blah, blah, blah. By the way, this is called the Holy Sovereignty Protection Act. I mean, who could possibly not support that, right? So we have Section 2 that says it's protection of United States citizenship in general. United States citizenship of any individual elected as the Supreme Pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church may not be revoked. Well, now, Parviz, being the technician that you are, I mean, you're right that a 4M generally would prevent it from being revoked unless you were a U.S. citizen born outside the United States, right? So, that provides, some protection. But here we go. Now, here we go. Tax-exempt status. Now, exempt. Not exclusion for foreign income, but exempt, completely exempt. So here we go. Here's the language. In the case of any citizen of the United States, such individual shall be exempt from taxation under subtitle A of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. That's the income tax part, right, by the way. With respect to any taxable year, any portion of which he is serving as the supreme pontiff of the Royal Catholic Church. Now, I want to point out, just as sort of the technical side of me wants to point something out. I do not read that as getting the Pope out of information returns. Okay, because that's, at least that's my initial reaction. I may be right, I may be wrong, okay? But it's the income tax. So, I mean, this is really brazen, isn't it?
Yeah, and the fact that it's so narrowly tailored like that, to me, suggests that maybe the introduction of the bill is just intended to be an expression of solidarity by Representative Hurd with the Pope and the Catholic nation. I guess the skeptic in me thinks that's the case. Yeah, I read some comments by colleagues as well. We're skeptical, to say the least, regarding the chances of this bill passing. What do you think, John?
Oh, I think I mean, if this passes, there's no such thing as rule of law in America anymore. I mean, this would be the final nail in the coffin. I mean, I think there's a lot of things you can look to. I mean, there's the whole issue of why just the Roman Catholic Church, etc. I don't know. No, I don't think it stands a good chance of passing, but I think it does stand a very good chance of creating discussion around the issue of citizenship taxation, which is why I think it's actually a good thing. I mean, it's so brazen. It is so brazen. I mean, that is what amazes me, I think, more than anything else here. I mean, it's almost like, maybe President Trump can propose this legislation exempting the President of the United States from Subtitle A. What do you think?
Can you hear me? Could I make a comment or two?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Laura.
Okay, my first one is, to my knowledge, my educated guess would be that, yes, those 3 kids of Ivana Trump probably do have some sort of citizenship, or at least would have at some point been eligible for it, because based on what I know about them, for example, the boys said that they learned to hunt because they spent their summers there with their grandfather, which tells me they've spent extended periods of time there. May or may not have needed a visa to do that, but I think it's pretty good, educated, highly educated guess they've got a citizenship, or at least had it, of one of those Czechoslovakian countries. The other thing is wouldn't this be a great conversion tool? Why doesn't he extend this to all Catholics living overseas? Just think how many people you get to join the Catholic Church.
I think that's a wonderful idea. And I think that, probably all expats who are Catholic should write to their congressman, I'm a Catholic too, please extend it to me.
I mean, you shouldn't be discriminating, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, there's 2 levels of possible discrimination here. First of all, if it applies, all Catholics should be exempt from Subtitle A. But then why just the Catholics? Why not just exempt everybody from Subtitle A?
The congressperson who introduced this seems to be preoccupied with Catholics and Catholicism. So let's jump on that. And, I'm sure that there's a lot of people who would be willing to convert to Catholicism on that basis.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful idea, Laura, an absolutely wonderful idea. Why don't we put this proposal on the SEAT website as an interim measure to solve your problem, convert to Catholicism?
Laura, if you want,
I think it's a great idea.
Willing plaintiffs, a colleague of mine on LinkedIn, an immigration lawyer named Jath Show, commented that he's confident that there's an army of sovereign citizens that are going to be willing to test this out by making their own little Catholic churches and spin up a bunch of case law.
I think that's also a wonderful idea. I mean, the whole thing is like, it's so, it's funny. This could only come out of the United States, right? I mean, no other country could possibly have a system that would entertain this kind of legislation.
I'll tell you what, I would gladly go to mass every Sunday if I could be exempt from U.S. taxation. I would do it.
Well, all you have to, well, then go to mass, Laura. I mean, whether you're a Catholic or not, just go to mass. I mean, you just have to, instead of filing a form with the IRS, you check off a box at the end of mass. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail anything. It was just too funny.
No. I think that I love that comment. I think it's extremely insightful. So now we have two groups of Americans abroad, those who are aspiring Catholics and those who are not. But I think that's great. So tell me, Laura, I mean, what do you think of the bill generally? I mean, do you like it? Do you say right on?
I
Or
have to agree with you. I mean, this has the potential. Well, I think that the potential, it should be a huge catalyst for change. Probably in reality, it won't be, because in the end, they really don't care. But it really does give a huge opportunity to say, what is this? I mean, you've got an open admission in this bill that there are problems with not only that there are serious problems, but that it leads to loss of citizenship. This is an open admission of this, and open recognition.
No, Laura, hang on. May I just pause here? Sorry to interrupt you, but is that how you read it? That there's a link between loss of citizenship and citizenship taxation, or you just read that as the guy has no idea what's going on?
Well, where would it? Why would there's only two elements to this bill? Why would you think that they wouldn't be linked?
Well, because they're different sections of the bill. I mean, one of them, I'm looking at this right in front of me.
It's one extremely short bill.
Oh, I know it is. And here we have section 2 that talks about protecting U.S. citizenship. It says the citizenship cannot be revoked. And there's section 3 that provides tax exempt status.
I mean, to me, it's obvious from that they're linked. I don't really know how to express better why that seems so obvious to me. The question I would ask is, why is it expressed in that way that his citizenship can't be revoked? Because is somebody threatening to revoke his citizenship? Isn't the real danger that he would renounce it? Those are two different things.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I actually do agree with you. Okay. I'm just, looking at this in terms of the pure logic of the thing. I mean, given as, Parviz points out, right, we have Lord knows this too, and we have the Euphorium decision that basically prevents them from stripping at least people born in the United States from citizenship. So that's a non-issue. So the only way that can make sense is by linking it to the taxation, right? That would be the point you'd make?
Yes, yeah.
If I could just make a comment here. I love the level of respect that Laura has for the knowledge or presumed knowledge of the drafters of the bill. And Laura, I don't know if you were here at the beginning. Me and John were going back and forth about, whether we think the text about the involuntary loss of citizenship is in fact related to the tax exemption status. I took the stance that I don't think they're related. I think the first part is there just because of just ignorance, basically, or possibly signaling to the audience. But for what it's worth, the Congressman Hurd's website says, so Rep. Hurd introduces Holy Sovereignty Protection Act. And then it says the bill prohibits the revocation of citizenship during a papal tenure. So revocation. If that's drafted carefully, and we know that perhaps that's not drafted carefully, right? That to me would suggest that they're not referring to a citizen being forced into renouncing or relinquishing U.S. citizenship because of onerous obligations, right? Because they could have written, and again, maybe I'm giving way too much credit to basically careful drafting, but they could have said to protect against the involuntary loss, right? That's kind of a more vague, generic term that could include U.S. citizens who technically renounced or relinquished, but because they felt forced to do so. So I don't think they're related. I think it's just two different sections, and somebody threw in there, oh yeah, and make sure that it's in there that the Pope, can't have his citizenship revoked while he's in office.
Well, I think you're being far too generous to their knowledge about really what's the right terminology to use in terms of loss of citizenship, because you see a lot of incorrect use of terminology. People talk about denouncing citizenship. So, it's to me, it's crystal clear. This wasn't okay. Whoever did this isn't someone who normally is working in this area, right? I mean, this particular representative is not someone, to my knowledge, any of us, any of the people that do any of these door knocks in Congress, this is not someone, to my knowledge, is approached, certainly not on a consistent basis. I don't think he's not, to my knowledge, he's not on any of the relevant committees. And the fact that you would introduce this bill with only those two clauses, well, I mean, again, I don't know how to articulate it better, but to me, it's obvious that they go together. It's obvious. I mean, because people will say, how would the problem be presented to them? Well, he's going to have all these tax issues, don't you? Oh, well, that's a problem. How can we avoid that? Well, he can renounce or give up his U.S. citizenship. Oh, well, we don't want that to happen. And there you go. Then you get those two clauses.
Well, it seems to me, okay, that we don't need to decide this. What's important is that one can rationally connect the two in the reading of the bill, right? Whether you're right or not, you can rationally connect them. And therefore, I think that on the retail level, by that I mean the people advocating for change should do just that. And just sort of, follow Laura's lead here. I think they should say, as Laura says, or something. Clearly, our job as advocates for change is to link those ideas. Agreed?
Absolutely agreed on that.
Yeah. And I think that Laura, whether she's right or whether she's wrong, I mean, she's providing the pathway, the map, I think, to get there, right? In part, coupled with the fact that, as Parviz points out, I mean, if you read the first part of that by itself, I mean, it's totally idiotic, given the Aforium decision, right? And I think the word involuntarily is in there, isn't there? Hang on a minute here. What does it actually say? Well, it says may not be revoked, right? That's a different thing from, But anyway, so there we go. I mean, I just, to me, leaving aside, the sort of intellectual gymnastics here, I think this is absolutely brazen, to, pick out one person, for a carve out to taxation. I mean, it's so brazen that no president has even done it yet, to my knowledge.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, look, if you're going to pick out a carve out from taxation, I mean, wouldn't you expect it to be some high ranking government official who should get the carve out? I mean, you're just giving, you're just dispensing favors, et cetera. Other thoughts? We got a lot of interesting people here listening. So I think I know some of them for sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Suzanne, love to hear what you think about this.
She's only got listener status for now.
How do I change that?
You're asking me?
I don't know how to do that. Let's
You
see.
can invite her as a speaker. So if you click the icon on the bottom right-hand corner that has pictures of kind of like humans, like emojis of humans, click on that and then scroll down and you can pick somebody and then invite them to speak.
All right. Let's see, speakers. Well, they've all been invited to speak. Everybody's been invited to speak. So I guess that's the best I can do, huh?
May I chime in while you're working that out? Hey, everyone. Hope everyone's well.
Aye, absolutely. Chime away.
I joined late, so I'm not exactly sure what was covered, but question. Can this current event with the Pope, can this be tied back to Trump's promise of ending double taxation? It can be like a very public and a very it's a very specific example of why double taxation needs to end and why Trump made the campaign promise to begin with. Like, so this can be a reintroduction of that same conversation. If I don't know if this was covered yet or not.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking around that a bit. I mean, I think you make a very good point that, the context is there. And I think we all agree that this is, I mean, at a bare minimum, I mean, this is a recognition that citizenship taxation is a problem. Agreed?
Yeah.
At a bare minimum, it's a problem for, the Pope. I actually expect it's less of a problem for the Pope, okay, than it is for a lot of people, even some people perhaps on this call. Then because it's a problem, it should be solved. And thank you, Pope Leo and Congressman Hurd, for elevating the visibility of this as a problem. But we think it's really time to solve the problem for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you read my blog post on this, I mean, that's actually, part D where I talk about that. But I'm glad to hear you agree. Who else we got here? Come on, jump in. So, I mean, does anybody think that this, in its present bare bones form, does anybody think that this might pass?
Speaking for myself, I don't really know the details of what was written. I just saw that your space was live, so I just introduced
Okay.
all this for the first time, really, for in terms of this current events. But I think it's just interesting that it's being at least brought back into the conversation. It's anything is good, right? Any news is good news. But if it's going to be passed, I have no comment.
Okay. Anybody have a comment on it?
My comment
Okay.
is they need you and Laura Snyder and Anthony Parent to guide them. First of all, explain what the issues are, clearly tie the two issues of involuntary loss of citizenship with the tax obligations for citizens abroad, and discuss changing their messaging so that it's so that they can be help them somehow to put the message out there, even if the bill doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of passing. At least clarify and tighten up the message. Even if that's all that's achieved, that presumably could still be attractive for the Congress member if his goal is messaging and grandstanding. And then on our side, on the advocate side, obviously it kind of generates one more person, one more ally in the camp, and one more clear message regarding the issue.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think that Congressman Hurd and his staff would really, really benefit from a visit from Laura Snyder. Do you think, Laura?
Yeah, I
Oh
volunteer
man,
Laura
if I
Snyder.
could get there, I can't afford to get there on my own. If I could get into his office, I'd be there.
Well, Laura, I'm gonna make you an offer. Okay, if you can get the appointment, I'll give you the plane ticket. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, honestly, I think lots of people should be, especially people from Colorado. Even if you're not in his district, I would say anybody with a connection to Colorado should be on the phone and emailing his office like nonstop, not once, but really be very persistent and consistent until you can get through to someone where you can really talk to them about it. Either in one of their regional offices or in DC. But anybody with a connection to Colorado should be on top of his office with this. And then,
So,
yeah.
so you have access to, or at least, you know, you're aware of Keith Redmond's group, right? I mean, there's a concentration of people. Would it make sense to, you know, say, hey, who's from Colorado? And
Sure, somebody could post that. Sure, yeah. But yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, they're anywhere. The other question I'm asking myself is, and I don't know, I didn't tune into this till late, so maybe you already had this discussion, but to what extent should we be really actively pushing in favor of this bill? I mean, I understand that the first.
I believe we should be pushing in favor of it.
Okay.
I believe we should be pushing it. At least that's, I'd be interested in other people's thoughts, but I think it's very, very important to interpret this and treat it as an opportunity for change and not as, you know, just some, you know, bullshit carve out for somebody, right?
No, the way I was thinking about it is, you know how we're always talking about how is an incremental solution something we should get behind, or should we say, you know, we need a full severance of citizenship from taxation, and anything else is just going to be a problem because members of Congress are going to think, oh, you know, you've solved the problem. Why are you back in our offices asking for more? And the contingent that argues, there is a strong contingent that argues we should take what we can get and then just keep fighting for more. Well, if you're going to take that perspective, okay, then let's take this. Let's take this. It's one American. Let's take it.
Well, I think that we are arguing in support of it because we're saying that, well, it should apply to everybody.
Absolutely. Of course.
Yeah. But I see your point. And just which camp are you in? Are you a supporter of the incremental approach, or do you believe in a severance of citizenship from tax residency?
Well, what hat do I have on when you ask me that question?
Well, the Laura Snyder hat. How about president of C for starter? How about that?
Okay, president of C, we definitely need a full severance. Anything else, I think, is going to be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's absolutely true. Okay.
I would say, however, that this bill is less dangerous, far less dangerous than, say, something like the LaHood bill, because it is so obviously discriminatory. It so obviously will not solve the problem for everyone.
It's so brazen. It's unbelievably brazen. You know, I mean, it's almost like it's part of it's almost just laughable, right? But the brazenness, in a way, is what might get it over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so little in it. There's so little in it. I mean, there's no way for anybody to get confused because there's not enough in it, right? I mean, maybe you know, you get the thing through just based on that. I don't know. But it is amazing. I mean, I do not understand how, you know, Congressman Hurd is at least, you know, according to stuff I read, yeah, he's a lawyer. He was a lawyer in New York at a name brand law firm for a number of years. I mean, like, doesn't this strike you as, on its face, practically presumptively unconstitutional?
Is there discriminate? Well, it would be an equal protection argument. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would start there, yeah.
It's so unusual, but I think you could make a very good argument that, yeah, you're exempting. You're saying that everybody except one person, you're giving one person better protection than everybody else. So surely that would raise an equal protection argument. But it's such a novel thing, to my knowledge, that I don't know how far you'd get with it. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you may be right. You may be right.
I have a quick question, if I may. To anyone's knowledge, besides the realm of citizenship, taxation, or just I'm just talking in Americans' laws in general. Has there ever been a specific carve out for any person, like notably? Or is this really maybe a first case, even in that for any individual to get any special carve out for any kind of law, which seems kind of crazy?
I've never studied this. I've only heard in passing of occasionally laws being drafted in such a way that they were obviously meant to only apply to one person, but they didn't name the person. They just put in so many conditions that it clearly would only apply to one specific person. But like I said, I've only heard of those things in passing, listening to news or something. It's not something I've ever studied or really know all that much about.
So when I read this, what came to mind was, do you remember, Laura, in the big beautiful bill, the first version of it in Congress that had that guilty carve out for business in the Virgin
I didn't
Islands?
look at that in detail. I mean, I vaguely recall that, but I don't know it in detail.
Yeah, well, what it had was it was really unbelievable. It was shocking. Okay, was basically it was a proposal for a carve out from the guilty rules, and the way it was drafted, it was clear that it was for. I mean, sure, it was generally descriptive, but it was clear that it would really only apply to one particular business. And in a way, this Hurd proposal reminds me of that. The difference is that it makes no attempt to disguise who it's to apply to, right? I mean, it's exactly the same thing. And it was interesting to me that the Virgin Islands carve out was omitted. It did not last when the thing was sent over to the Senate. But it's very much the same kind of thing. Very much the same kind of thing, yeah. By the way, while this discussion was going on, when we read the actual statute, the exemption was from subtitle A. I just want to make a narrow, but I think technically important point here. The information returns are in subtitle F, procedure and administration. So this is quite interesting. Even if it did pass, it would not end the reporting requirements.
When we contact this congressperson's office, we need to tell them they left that out. They need to put it in. We should even.
Could you call them up today and say you haven't gone far enough? You need subtitle F as well.
We need to propose the specific language that should be added to the bill.
Okay. So here's the language then. Just a minute here. Where's the bill again? So how do we fix it? Look, we're doing work for the congressman right now, aren't we? Okay, so what he says is his desire is, in the case of any citizen of the United States, such individuals shall be exempt from tax under subtitle A of the Internal Revenue Code. So all we add, and we just simply add, and the provisions of subtitle F. That's all we add.
Perfect.
Everybody make a note of that. Call the congressman's office. You haven't gone far enough. You need a subtitle F exemption. Otherwise, he's going to have to still report, right?
And the reporting for him is going to be just as big of a problem as the tax will be, if not a bigger one.
I think that the reporting for Americans abroad is almost always a bigger problem than the tax. Okay. But I don't understand exactly how this whole operation works. My impression is that he's at the top of a pyramid of, a vast number of entities, possible corporations, et cetera, right? And I'm sure that you could find no end of tax lawyers who would suggest that he's subject to a boatload of penalty-laden reporting requirements. That'd be my guess. But look at that. My God, as brazen as this is, they haven't gone far enough. They need the subtitle F exemption, don't they? And they need an exemption from the Bank Secrecy Act, Section 5314, for FBAR. God damn it. We can help them, can't we?
Question. Does anyone know if the Pope himself has made a public statement about this specific issue?
I am not aware of one, but no, I don't know whether he has or not. But I suspect that somebody might know if is anybody aware of Pope Leo having said anything about U.S.
It
taxation?
would be so great if the Pope can make an official statement, basically condemning citizenship taxation, like from basically with all power that he has with his voice. That would be amazing. But hoping.
Our general experience has been that people in having some sort of higher profile who are faced with these issues tend to keep their mouths shut tight. For example, Meghan Markle, or even Prince Harry himself, or Bernie Sanders' brother. Sure, there's some other people that, to date, to my knowledge, they say nothing. They don't take any public position on any of this. I know Meghan Markle was solicited openly to take a position. Nothing. Of course, that was when she was living outside the U.S. Now it's more Harry's issue than it is hers, I guess.
So there's this very popular podcaster, Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
My impression is that he may live outside the United States. It would be interesting to get him on a podcast.
Isn't he a professor at NYU?
Yeah,
let them live
or at least.
like that?
Sorry, I didn't get what you said.
Let them live outside the U.S. like that? Wouldn't that pose all sorts of employment issues for them?
I have no idea. But the last time I heard, or sometime in the last year or two. Now, you know what it was? So Democrats Abroad was running a bunch of, dog and pony shows, trying to get people to vote Democrat in the last election. He was one of their speakers. So I was watching that, and I think that he said he was living in London. Okay, I may be wrong, but there's somebody who, might actually, have something intelligent to say about this. I don't know. But I think you're right, Laura, but what about, trying to get a meeting? Laura meets the Pope.
Yeah. I think I'd get an appointment in this congressperson's office a lot earlier.
Well, but it's not either or. Think big.
Okay, we got any contacts with anyone high in the Catholic Church?
Well, I used to know a priest who died last year. No, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't, that could not be achieved. I mean, I actually think that there might be some benefit, and I mean, if you could get the Pope to, in a general way, condemn this as a practice, that would be, I think, generally helpful. But then we probably have Congress saying, well, how many tanks does the Pope have?
Yeah, I don't see anybody with that just hasn't happened to date. They just, maybe they're afraid of the scrutiny. Maybe they have the same fears that all the other people who remain silent have, which is it will invite unwanted scrutiny to their own affairs.
Well, that may very well be, but you can be sure that the Pope has the money for an adequate defense. He's not going to be on GoFundMe, help, I need to pay a lawyer for an FBAR fine.
These are not their hills to fight on. They've just got no motivation, I think, to stick their necks out on this. I don't see, really, I don't. Why? Because they wouldn't be doing it for themselves. They'd be doing it for everybody else. And why? Because that people's initial reaction, if you complain about this type of thing, the average person's initial reaction is to think, oh, you're just some rich person who doesn't want to pay taxes. All you do is invite negative reactions, unfairly negative, but that's all they are going to do is invite negative reactions.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of this is probably true to a certain degree, but all I'm saying is that this whole thing, right, with the Pope, you know, with is it Mr. Robert Prevost? Is that his name? Having been elected Pope has created an opportunity for, I think, additional scrutiny of this issue. That's all I'm saying. And we're seeing that being played out. Look at Congressman Hurd is right here on cue. Et cetera. All right. So let's see what else. Who else we got here? Well, let's hear from some other people here. This is interesting. Who wants to add your thoughts to this?
Do we know if Representative LaHood has contacted Representative Hurd? Do we know if they have any relationship or communication on this topic?
Well, I certainly don't. Maybe somebody does. So it's interesting to me that one would think rationally, okay, that were there some communication, Representative LaHood might, let's say that, Representative Hurd runs into Congress and sits down by Mr. LaHood and says, oh my God, this is so unjust, subjecting the Pope to subtitle A. And LaHood might say, oh, I just happen to have a solution to that problem. In fact, I introduced this draft bill in December. I suspect they don't, because if this really were a concern, one would think, okay, that getting behind the LaHood bill might be a way to solve it, or maybe just thinks that's too complicated. And besides, I just want to help the Pope. I don't care about everybody else.
A lot of people will say that anything that touches on taxation in this manner should go through Ways and Means. LaHood's on Ways and Means. I don't think this guy's on Ways and Means. I haven't checked his committee. I haven't double checked, but to my knowledge, he's not on Ways and Means.
Okay, I don't think he is, but if you look at and I don't understand how this works particularly, but if you look at the link on Congress, I think is it possible Ways and Means is aware of this.
Oh, why? Because they've talked about it? Ways and Means talked about this bill?
I don't know how to articulate it. Take a look at the site.
On the Ways and Means site?
No, the link is in my post. Okay, the Congress site that keeps track of the bills introduced.
Oh, so when
the link is right there. What does it say?
Referred to Committee on Ways and Means. Oh,
there you go. That's what I was trying to say and couldn't find the words.
It's
okay.
Referred, but they have so because it has tax matters, it was referred, but it doesn't look like they've done anything with it. And normally this would be a reason why it wouldn't be adopted then, because Ways and Means would have to get behind it, basically. They'd have to get behind it. Because so many members of Congress won't touch anything, touching on taxation if Ways and Means isn't behind it.
Okay. So if Ways and Means doesn't object to it, then that gives it some tailwinds.
I don't know that it'd be a question of just not objecting. I think it'd be a question of them, I don't know enough about congressional processes to discuss this in a highly intelligent way. But what I do know.
Do you think it matters how many Ways and Means members are Catholic?
I think you'd have to get, I don't know, either some sort of positive reaction from the committee or something, or I don't know exactly what it would need to be, but it would need to be something. I'm sure somebody more knowledgeable on congressional processes could explain this far better than I just have.
Well, in any case, yeah. In any case, it's really, really interesting. Other thoughts on this? We got some interesting people here today.
I'd like to chime in just with some more general thoughts about kind of framing. If Pope Leo incurs some fees and fines, especially if it's a large fine, he's probably not going to be busting open his own personal piggy bank, right? Or actually, if anybody would like to chime in, does anybody think that somebody or an entity other than the Vatican would be paying massive fines if by some reason Pope Leo incurs them in his tenure in office? Does anybody think somebody other than the Vatican would pay it?
I
Okay.
can't imagine this getting to that stage. I really cannot imagine.
Right. I think it's extremely unlikely. But if you just humor me for a moment, if it got to that stage, Laura, who do you think would be most likely to be paying it?
I just can't imagine it getting to the. I just can't get my head around that.
Only the church would have the money to
Only
pay
the
it,
church,
right?
right? I agree, and I hear you, Laura. I also think it's very unlikely, but it's possible, right? So if it's the church that's paying it, is it Pope Leo that's, as a practical matter, is it Pope Leo that's subject to U.S. reporting and taxation, or is it the Catholic Church that's subject to U.S. reporting and taxation?
Well, it depends on relation to what, right?
And there's
I mean,
criminal elements here too, isn't there? There's some criminal penalties here that I think would have to lay squarely on the individual.
Okay, yeah. So, but as far as I agree, but as far as what this means and why this would be of interest, right, to greater people, I think the way to frame it, and I think there's it's true as well, is that trying to get this bill passed is trying to remove the sword of Damocles over the church, not just Pope Leo individually, right? Because obviously, if he's, as with all people who are subject to extraterritorial, jurisdiction or extraterritorial obligations, just as we were speaking about in a previous space regarding dual citizens in legislature, if you're subject to onerous laws of a foreign country, that provides a super strong incentive for you to be influenced by that country in your current office, whether it be legislative or the Pope. I think that's the framing that would catch people's attention. Like why does the Catholic Church have to be subject to the winds of political change in the United States? Some president comes into office, some overly ambitious IRS commissioner or whatever, and then they start doing the thing that we think is so unlikely, and extracting fines from the church. I think that would get people's attention more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's right. So one of the points here, right? I mean, I think that U.S. citizens should be barred internationally from all kinds of things for this reason. I think it was a mistake, although it's helped our cause, I think, right, by illuminating this. But I think it was a great mistake to elect an American citizen as Pope because of these problems. I mean, any American citizen is presumptively compromised, right, because of the, to use your language, the sword of Damocles over that person all the time. That said, I think the chances of any penalties or anything on Pope Leo are exactly zero, because to do that will elevate the issue of citizenship taxation into the public consciousness. And that it would be the worst thing, for the U.S. tax authorities, or, the segments of the U.S. political community that believe in citizenship taxation. So I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, I think that probably Pope Leo could, write a public declaration that he just can't file an FBAR as a matter of conscience. I don't think anything would happen. That's my guess. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's extremely unlikely. But the point is that it seems like the U.S. government would have the power to do something. And I think that's what has to be the focus, right? Yeah,
I think that's right. Well, do you agree with me when I, say, and I'll say it again, that I don't think that any U.S. citizen should be, in a position like Pope or head of state of another country, or even, in the legislative branch of another country?
No, I'm not I'm not willing to go that far. I understand the issues, but a blanket kind of I don't know what you want to call it, prohibition or prescription. No, I'd have to stop short of that. I totally understand and agree on the issues with you as we spoke about in the other space on dual citizens in the legislature, in legislatures.
Okay. All right. Let's see who else here.
You know, just to tease out that point that you just made, John. American Catholics are really proud that we have an American Pope. It's a big source of excitement and pride, right? So, you know, if the options are presented, you know, okay, if the question is phrased as such, for the Catholic Church to be uncompromised, okay, by partisan U.S. politics, totally to remain totally insulated, okay, or at least as insulated as they've been up until today, okay, one of two things has to happen: either no American can be the Pope, or any American that's the Pope has to be totally exempt from U.S. reporting obligations and tax obligations. If that's the question, and these are the two options, I don't know. I think a lot, perhaps a majority of Irish Catholics, to the extent they're aware of the issue, are going to say, okay, exempt him then. Okay, yeah, then he should be exempt. We're not giving up our opportunity to have an American Pope. You see what I'm saying, John? And I think that's the framing, right? That would activate Catholic Americans on the issue and at least be interested in understanding what the bill is, what the issue is. Again, even though I think we all agree here that the chances are slim to none that it gets passed.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts?
This just occurred to me, and maybe I don't know if it's exactly related, but and I don't know the details of the laws in America, but I have a general understanding that most religious institutions in America are tax exempt already as it is. Maybe this could be argued from that perspective that uh, he should be tax exempt because he's a part of a established religious institution, and it maybe that'll divert the question away from citizenship based taxation, but that would just keep it back into the realm of religious institutions being exempt from taxes.
Well, that's a very interesting point. But I mean, does that mean that any clergymen in the United States should be exempt from tax?
My understanding, well, maybe they're not exempt from their personal tax liability. Maybe just the institution is. Again, I'm not an expert. I do have some idea of hearing that the religious institutions have tax exemptions, but I don't know how that translates into, like, let's say the individual priests or clergy or
Yeah, I think they don't. I actually came across interesting. I don't know anything about this, but I came across interestingly a guy who specialized, some tax person who specializes in that. So I mean, there are odds and ends of areas where I think there may be tax preferences, but this is something that is so incredibly different, right? I mean, this is a complete exemption, and this is why it's so brazen, right? I mean, a complete exemption from Subtitle A, and we're going to contact Congressman Hurd and say, oh my God, you forgot to put in Subtitle F as well, right? But yeah. Okay. Who else would like to add? I'm really interested to hear what people have to say about this, so please don't be shy. Okay, let's say that this goes through somehow. Okay, and all of a sudden we have one U.S. citizen who's exempt from not only citizenship, the problems of citizenship-based taxation, right? Now understand, the Hood bill or the holding bill, these are exempting Americans abroad from foreign source income. This is extraordinary in that it's an exemption from some Title A period, which is any source of income, right? So it goes way further. actually, than something like the Hood bill or the Holding bill, or even the Trump pledge. So it shouldn't even be seen necessarily as the equivalent of those things. But let's imagine this goes through and you read on the front page of the New York Times, U.S. citizen Pope Leo exempt from U.S. taxation and reporting. What then? Does Laura say I'm a Catholic too, so I must be exempt?
Then we enter the what's good for the goose is good for the gander phase of advocacy.
All right, meaning?
It's like,
Meaning,
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead, Laura.
I was going to say it's like reverse equal protection. Right? I mean, the principle of equal protection is you're not supposed to single out any group of people for worse treatment. Here you've singled out one person for better treatment. I don't know. I'm just
right
saying it out loud. It's just.
Well, it's totally Orwellian, right? If you've read the book Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, right?
But is reverse equal protection not also an equal protection violation? Because
Yes, I think so. I mean, look, in simple terms, okay, you don't have to be some, high flying intellectual here to get the point, right? That, we got some guy who's being exempted from the laws that are destroying your life because he happens to be, has a certain employment stature or something, right? I mean, isn't that what it is?
yeah.
So what do you think the mass reaction will be? What do you think people in Keith Redmond's group would think about this?
Well, I don't consider that a mass reaction. No, those are two different things.
Well, okay, a mass reaction. What do you think the reaction would be
I
generally?
mean, I think the reaction of the American public would be to shrug. I think the reaction, of overseas Americans would be, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh my God, Mike is here. Mike, you want to speak?
I thought it was unusual that we had been talking about CBT for more than 2 minutes and Mike Breen didn't show up.
Well, he's here. He's here as a listener anyway. Hi, Mike. Okay. Well, I think we know what Mike thinks of this. Okay. Well, on balance, I go back to my original point. I think that this is a real opportunity. I think that this has been thrown in the laps of, people are concerned with this issue. It provides a certain degree of stickiness and an opportunity for conversation. I think the first thing is to reach out to his office and explain how this needs to be amended quickly to include subtitle F, right? That this is the real problem that the Pope is subjected to.
Yeah.
All right. Would that be a good project for SEAT?
Well, it could be. We can discuss.
And any discussion of SEAT leads to who? Begins with L.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, we can just.
Uh-huh. And no, but I mean, in all seriousness, on all counts, does anybody, I mean, I think that's a very good way to get into the conversation on this. Just to look at the bill and say, hey, wow, you forgot this.
Yeah.
Got to get it in there, right? All right.
John, can we circle back to your question? Suspend belief, and let's imagine that somehow, some way, this bill is passed. Don't you think what would happen next is other Americans abroad would start suing for the same treatment?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I think they'd look for a class action. I mean, the problem is that these things cost money, but I mean, what would be the basis? I'm a Catholic too.
No,
The basis is being an American abroad.
Equal.
I'm an American abroad too.
No, I mean the first.
Yeah, but you're not.
This is a little bit outside of my lane, of course, but the first thing comes to my mind is equal protection, right? He has this treatment by this combination of laws. Why shouldn't I and others in my position get it too? So I guess maybe it would be an attack. I don't know. Maybe it would be an attack on. I don't know. I don't know enough about litigation in this arena to really get into the specifics, but I would guess first an equal protection claim.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably. I don't either, but I think it would probably include that. I mean, I'm not even sure how to articulate it. This strikes me as just so incredibly brazen. I mean, it's just like that Virgin Islands guilty carve out. It's the same damn thing. It's just that the only difference is that in this bill, they're identifying pretty much the individual, right? In the Virgin Islands, you had to read 3 or 4 more lines to figure out who it might be. But, yeah. Is there anybody who does not see this as an opportunity? I mean, on the advocacy front.
It's absolutely an opportunity.
Yeah. Anybody disagree? Okay. Well, we've been at this for a while. Probably we should do a wrap up here. Anybody have any additional thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Normally when I do these,
I just want to reiterate. I think for a lot of people, for a lot of Catholics, the Pope is their rock star. That's their guy. That's their celebrity. They want to know what he had for breakfast, what he ate for dinner, what he's doing, what issues he has. They want to know everything about him. And that presents an incredible opportunity to use him as a vehicle to really highlight the CBT issues. And, I think to some extent, everybody kind of knows this already on this call, but I think really that's the perspective. Anything that's related to the Pope, especially personally, is going to get a massive audience. Even dare I say, even as dry and complex of a subject as taxation. So, the Pope can be the Trojan horse for bringing this issue, for developing interest worldwide in this issue.
Oh, I think that's right. And I think the message is it's not about taxation. It's about the Pope.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Well, there's a spicier way of going about it, right? Too, which is, some people, people are more sensitive to fronts and perceived persecution of their guy, their leader, right? And so, there might be some people out there that are going to take this as, the Pope Leo being a U.S. citizen subject to CBT as being an attack on Catholics and Catholicism and the Catholic Church, that type of thing. So, there's all different, people look at these restrictions and difficulties that their leaders have through different lenses, right? And there is, there is going to be, I think, a cohort that kind of looks at it more towards this is the continued persecution of Catholics type lens.
To add on to that, I think it's a very interesting point. To add on to that, maybe not just Americans, but I'm saying the global Catholic community, maybe they can hear of this and also feel slighted and offended by, the U.S. government going after their guy, and it becomes an issue that's appealing to the greater Catholic global community, not just the American one.
Yeah, exactly. There's some people that
Yeah.
are gonna, even Catholics abroad, that are gonna object to, IRS above church, something like that. Who's subject to who? Who answers to who? I think some Catholic abroad are gonna be are gonna detest, the very notion that the Pope and the Vatican has to tap dance and jump through hoops for the IRS. I think it's a great point, Bitcoiner.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. This has been a really great conversation. I thank everybody for your participation. It's really been good. Other thoughts on this?
No, I think,
Okay.
well, I said no, but then I guess I do have extra thoughts. Yeah, just would like to reiterate, yes, if you could interview Representative Hurd, that John, Laura, or in conjunction, that would be phenomenal. Like, I would love to hear from his perspective. I didn't know, actually, John, that he was a lawyer until you mentioned it. Now I might be more inclined to see the revocation of citizenship issue and the tax, like those two components of the bill, as being more related, because I didn't know that Hurd was a lawyer. But yeah, I also would like to know whether those are two kind of standalone provisions intended to be standalone, or if it was intended to be specifically, we're addressing the tax obligations to make sure that the Pope doesn't feel obligated to renounce citizenship.
Well, I think our job as I'll say, advocacy community is to link those issues.
100%,
We need to do
100%
that.
agree. That's the angle. Either way, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts here? Normally, when I do these spaces, I get somebody to sort of do a final summary. Any takers on that? Laura, surely you have something to summarize.
Not really, John.
Actually, I think Parviz did a very, very good job there at the end. And yeah, so this has been great. Shall we call it here, which we've been almost an hour and a half, which is, I think, a substantial length of time. All right. So again, this is John Richardson. I am speaking with you from Toronto, Canada. And today is Wednesday, July the 30th. It is now 12:30 in the afternoon. And I thank everybody again and look forward to the next space. Thank you.